If you think you have already seen every strange wonder on Earth, these landscapes will make you question that belief. In China, there are natural phenomena and ancient formations that look as if they belong to another planet, where colors, shapes, and scale surpass ordinary imagination. Tidal waves rise like towering walls of water, salt lakes shine like endless mirrors, and crimson beaches stretch across the land like surreal carpets. Sacred peaks disappear into clouds, turquoise valleys glow under sunlight, vast deserts expand beyond the horizon, and roaring waterfalls complete scenes that seem almost unreal. This is a journey into China's wonders that don't seem real, where reality itself can feel more extraordinary than fiction. Tengger Desert, China. In the middle of a vast sea of golden sand, the Tengger Desert protects more than 400 deep blue lakes like islands of life in a dry world. Covering about 16,600 square miles, it is the fourth largest desert in China and stretches across 3 major administrative regions. Around these lakes grow bright green grass and shrubs, forming a sharp boundary between intense life and dry, barren land. Many crescent-shaped dunes rise up to about 650 feet high, looking like giant ocean waves frozen by the wind. In ancient times, this area formed part of a major trade corridor where caravans risked extreme conditions to cross the sands. To stop the movement of sand, people built large straw grid systems across thousands of acres, creating an ecological structure that protects key transportation routes. Wulong Karst. Famous as a giant museum of nature, this place overwhelms visitors with huge stone bridges and sinkholes as deep as 1,600 feet. The landscape is a striking contrast between grey cliffs, rising hundreds of feet, and a lush green forest resting at the bottom of the gorge. Hidden between the straight rock walls is an old wooden house that looks completely cut off from the outside world. In the past, local people had to risk their lives carving thousands of slippery stone steps to climb down. But today, you can reach the bottom much more easily by a giant glass elevator that drops hundreds of feet in just 1 minute. And if you want to test your courage, step onto the glass viewing platform, hanging nearly 1,000 feet above the bottom, for a truly shaking experience. Leshan Giant Buddha. Standing with great power at the heart of a mountain range shaped like a sleeping Buddha, this is the tallest stone Buddha statue in the world, carved directly into a steep cliff. At about 233 feet tall, this giant statue has an index finger about 26 feet long, and the top of its foot is wide enough for 100 people to sit on together. This masterpiece took about 90 years to complete, and millions of tons of falling stone helped calm the dangerous river below. Even after more than 1,300 years, the statue still stands firm because of a clever, hidden drainage system inside the head, ears, and robe. Unlike the stone body, the Buddha's ears, each about 23 feet long, were made from wood covered with clay and fixed tightly to the cliff with great ancient skill. Where three rivers meet, the statue feels like a giant guardian, bringing peace to the people and to the boats passing by. Dagu Glacier. At an altitude of 16,000 feet, Dagu Glacier has a cold beauty like another planet, completely separated from the valley below. To reach the top, you take a cable car that climbs about 4,000 feet in just 15 minutes, creating an overwhelming feeling. Up here, the huge ice, pressed tightly for tens of thousands of years, has turned into a brilliant blue that looks stunning. Even with that beauty, the landscape is still dangerous, filled with sharp ice blades and deep cracks. It feels hard to believe that there is even a modern coffee shop in the middle of this frozen world. But because the air is so thin, the building must be supplied with oxygen all the time so visitors can safely admire this spectacular work of nature. Jiuzhaigou, China. Instead of an ocean, Jiuzhaigou forms its own world of blue colors among ancient limestone mountains in China. The waterfalls do not crash straight down, but flow gently over natural limestone terraces, creating wide and soft layers of water. The lakes shift from emerald to sapphire and deep green within a small area, depending on light and depth. Fallen trees do not rot because minerals cover them, turning the wood into pale structures resting beneath the clear water. Its surreal beauty has made it a filming location for famous Chinese movies. However, because of high mineral levels, the water cannot be drunk directly, and almost no fish survive in the main lakes. Iron Pagoda. Tricking the eye with a surface that looks like metal, this tower, called the Iron Pagoda, was actually built completely from glazed brick and rises 183 feet high. It was built in 1049 to replace an older wooden tower destroyed by lightning and fire because people wanted to create something stronger against time. Every brick here feels like a work of art, with more than 1,600 carved designs ranging from Buddha figures to mythical animals. After many great floods, the base of the tower was buried about 7 feet under layers of silt, making it look as if it is rising out of the earth. With its 13 levels, the tower stands for the highest stages of spiritual awakening in Eastern belief. As the highest part still left from an ancient city buried below, it remains a powerful sign of human wisdom that refused to fall before hardship. Shaoju Bridge. Not heavy or rough in appearance, this bridge is as graceful as a crescent moon and has stood across the river for more than 1,400 years. It is the oldest stone arch bridge of its kind in the world, using a design that was about 700 years ahead of the West, thanks to 4 small flood openings. Even though the top of its arch is only about 3 feet thick, the bridge can still carry large trucks without using a single drop of modern cement. Its stone blocks are locked together with iron joints, helping it survive 10 great floods and many powerful earthquakes without giving way. The bridge is also made from 28 parallel stone arch strips, so people can repair one part without damaging the whole structure. Its original name was Anji, carrying the hope that people can cross every storm in life safely and gently. Jiangye Dangxia feels like a stone ocean of color, where the earth looks as if giant bands of paint were poured across the land. The mountains here are not green with trees, but glow with red, yellow, orange, green, white, and grey layers arranged in flowing parallel stripes like waves of silk. Those colors were formed from red sandstone and different minerals laid down over more than 24 million years, then lifted, pressed, and folded by tectonic forces. What makes the scene even more magical is that the colors change with light, becoming richer and brighter after rain or under the low sun of sunset. From a distance, the hills look soft, like velvet or fabric, but up close, they reveal themselves as dry and rigid stone shaped by immense time. Covering about 19 square miles, this place feels not only like a geological wonder, but also like one of the most powerful visual shocks along the old routes between East and West. Dual Temple. Standing through nearly 30 major earthquakes over more than 1,000 years, this wooden tower feels as if even natural disasters had to step back before its strength. Its secret lies in countless flexible wooden joints that help the whole building absorb shaking like giant springs instead of breaking apart. From outside, it seems to have only 2 main levels with old grey wood, but inside, it actually has 3 because of a hidden middle floor that helps hold the frame together. Once you step inside, the most overwhelming sight is a clay Buddha, about 52 feet tall, with 11 different faces on a single head. On the walls are Ming paintings whose colors and facial expressions still feel very alive, giving the whole space a sacred and quiet depth. It may be because this place is so precious that the number of visitors is always limited, so every step on the old wooden floor feels like touching the past. Hutawan Village, China. Hutawan Village shows what happens when nature slowly takes back a human settlement and turns it into a sea of green vines and thick leaves. In the 1980s, it was a prosperous fishing community with more than 3,000 residents and solid 3-story brick houses filled with daily life. From the 1990s to the early 2000s, families moved away step by step because the steep terrain made schooling and food transport difficult. There was no war or natural disaster, and the decline happened quietly over nearly a decade until the village stood empty. Narrow alleys and long stone stairways are blocked by roots and ferns, leaving a powerful vision of how the Earth might look without human presence. Huangxian Valley, China. Huangxian Valley looks like a fantasy world brought into real life, with clusters of houses gripping a cliff as if gravity does not apply. It was once a damaged granite quarry with heavy pollution. Then nearly $400 million were invested, and the site was restored for 10 straight years. The buildings take ideas from stilt homes but have no ground foundation, because massive steel anchors are drilled into the mountain and disguised with traditional wooden joint design. To create an old and natural look, builders avoid paint and use rammed earth methods, mixing local yellow soil with straw and covering the suspended frames. From the valley floor, thousands of grey tile roofs stack like giant bird nests, making the place feel like a hanging city. At night, warm lantern light fills the mist, and staying on a cliff edge room with strong wind and waterfall noise can cost far more than luxury hotels on the lowlands. Jewel Temple. Standing through nearly 30 major earthquakes over more than 1,000 years, this wooden tower feels as if even natural disasters had to step back before its strength. Its secret lies in countless flexible wooden joints that help the whole building absorb shaking like giant springs instead of breaking apart. From outside, it seems to have only 2 main levels with old grey wood, but inside, it actually has 3 because of a hidden middle floor that helps hold the frame together. Once you step inside, the most overwhelming sight is a clay Buddha, about 52 feet tall, with 11 different faces on a single head. On the walls are Ming paintings whose colors and facial expressions still feel very alive, giving the whole space a sacred and quiet depth. It may be because this place is so precious that the number of visitors is always limited, so every step on the old wooden floor feels like touching the past. Ningwu Ice Cave feels like one of nature's strangest paradoxes, where ancient ice has remained in place for nearly 3 million years, while the outside world has passed through countless hot seasons. It is known as the largest ice cave in China, sitting about 7,546 feet above sea level and dropping more than 328 feet into the earth like a giant frozen well. Inside, the walls, floor, and ceiling are wrapped in thick ice, while towering ice columns and sharp icicles make the whole chamber look both crystal clear and slightly threatening. Even more surprising, the ice can grow thicker in summer, when extra moisture condenses in the cave, creating a natural rule that feels completely opposite to ordinary logic. What makes it stranger still is that not far away, underground coal fires burn with intense heat, so this small region holds both hidden fire and permanent ice at the same time. It feels not only like an unusual cave, but like a giant geological vault, where time, cold, and silence have locked an entire frozen world inside the mountain. Huku Waterfall, China. Shattering all limits of dreamy, crystal-clear water ribbons, this monster roaring and boiling a massive block of muddy lava is the only and greatest yellow waterfall on the planet. Likened to the violent heartbeat of the Yellow River, the vast 984-foot riverbed is suddenly and ruthlessly choked into a steep rocky crevice, narrowed down to only 65 to 98 feet. This life-or-death fracture forces the water mass to plunge into a 98-foot deep abyss, creating a terrifying, natural meat grinder with a peak flow rate reaching 282,000 cubic feet per second. The terrifying impact shattering at the bottom of the abyss shoots columns of water 164 feet straight up into the sky, creating the famous smoking water phenomenon that thrills the vision. Under the harsh sunlight, the thick muddy mist weaves brilliant rainbows across the roaring waterfall, bringing a perfectly contrasting beauty between violence and poetry. This treacherous abyss is also the origin of the great legend, where any carp swimming upstream and leaping over the waterfall's mouth will immediately turn into a sacred dragon soaring into the sky. Potala Palace. Rising on a mountain peak about 12,100 feet high, This is the highest palace in the world and the most sacred symbol of Tibet. This huge building rises about 384 feet tall and was built by hand with stone walls up to 16 feet thick, with molten copper poured into the base to help it resist earthquakes. Inside this vast palace are more than 1,000 rooms, about 10,000 shrines, and nearly 200,000 Buddha statues of many sizes. It also holds tomb towers up to about 39 feet high, covered in pure gold, and one of them used as much as about 8,000 pounds of gold, along with many precious stones. The strangest detail is that every year, local people use a mix of milk, honey, and sugar to coat the walls, helping the palace stay strong in harsh weather. To protect its ancient wooden structure, each visitor is allowed only 1 hour to explore this overwhelming kingdom in the clouds. Furong Ancient Town, China. Furong Ancient Town is built as if it hangs over a waterfall, clinging to a steep cliff instead of flat ground, with more than 2,000 years of history and once serving as a major trading center in the region. The town center is split by a natural two-tier waterfall, about 131 feet wide, with a vertical drop of about 196 feet, pouring into a deep river day and night. Traditional wooden stilt houses stand along the cliff without iron nails, using complex wooden joints anchored into the reversed slope for stability. More than 5 miles of smooth blue stone streets twist and rise with the sharp mountain gradient, leaving almost no truly flat surface. A carved walkway runs directly behind the curtain of water, allowing visitors to pass through darkness and roaring spray inside the town. when tens of thousands of red lanterns glow at night and create a magical scene like the film Spirited Away, the thunder of the waterfall becomes a calm white noise that gently lulls local residents to sleep. Guanyang Rice Terraces feels like a vast ocean of earth and water, where human hands have carved an entire mountainside into a living masterpiece for more than 1,300 years. Built completely by hand by the Honey people, this system spreads across more than 39,500 acres and climbs to nearly 6,562 feet, creating a scale that hardly seems possible for farming. Its most magical season comes from November to March, when the flooded terraces turn into countless giant mirrors reflecting clouds, sky, and changing light through the day. Then, when the rice ripens, the whole mountain shifts into glowing gold and gives the landscape a feeling of abundance built over many generations. Between those terraces stand the Hani houses, with thatched roofs shaped like giant mushrooms, designed to endure the wet mountain climate. It feels not only like an agricultural heritage site, but like proof that when people live in harmony with the land, labor itself can become art. Namtso Lake, Tibet, China. Known as the sea on top of the sky, this wonder is not just a simple body of water, but a place where the human soul can touch the absolute purity of the universe. At an altitude of 15,479 feet, this highest salt lake in the world is a sacred pilgrimage site, helping travelers cleanse their karma through every step around its shore. Spreading over 741 square miles with a depth of up to 394 feet, the deep blue lake is like a 40-floor building submerged under thick sapphire water. On windless days, the still water reflects the great snow mountains with absolute precision, completely blurring all boundaries of the horizon. Its wild beauty is evident through places of worship hidden within natural limestone cliffs and the silhouettes of snow-white yaks dotting the lake shore. However, this stargazing paradise is also harsh, as low oxygen levels and intense ultraviolet rays can burn skin in just 30 minutes. Panjin Red Beach, China. Named a beach but possessing no sand, This wonder is actually a biological sea of fire, burning brilliantly right in the heart of the deep blue ocean. This deep red hue is woven from the Suaeda salsa plant, a strange organism that uses the toxic salt concentration of the soil as life sap to shine brilliantly. Accumulated by silt from China's fourth largest river, this wetland of over 64,247 acres serves as a colossal chemical map indicating the alkalinity of the ground. To preserve the fragile velvet carpet, a wooden bridge system over 6,562 feet long is erected on deep pillars, allowing humans to glide over the mudflats without causing any harm. The scenery becomes even more surreal as extremely rare, red-crowned cranes with only about 2,500 individuals left globally soar over the vivid red background like a living ink wash painting. However, this moment of glory only exists for a brief 3 weeks each year before transforming back into a dull and grey mudflat. Hanging Temple. Built in 491, this temple stands about 164 feet above the river, with more than 40 rooms linked by narrow wooden passageways. Its most special feature is the rare cultural harmony of a place that honors Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism at the same time. Because it sits deep inside a hollow in the cliff, the rock above becomes a natural roof that has protected the temple from sun and rain for many centuries. From far away, people often think the thin wooden posts below are holding up the whole building, but the real weight is carried by wooden beams driven about 7 to 10 feet into the rock. All of the wood was also soaked in a special plant oil to resist water, insects, and harsh weather. When people walk across the steep wooden steps, hear the wind through the gorge, and listen to the boards creak under their feet, it feels like walking between fear and faith. Sakyamuni Pagoda of Fogong Temple. Built without a single brick, this wooden tower was raised in 1056 and is now the tallest and oldest wooden pagoda on Earth. What is hard to believe is that the whole tower, weighing about 8,200 tons, has stood for nearly 1,000 years only because of its amazing wooden joints. From the outside, it seems to have only 5 levels, but inside, it actually has 9, including 4 hidden levels that hold the frame together more tightly from within. One unusual sight is the thousands of swallows flying around the roof, eating wood-eating insects and helping the tower survive through time. Its 8-sided design helps spread the force of the wind from every direction, allowing it to stand firm through major storms for 10 centuries. Even after being hit by more than 200 artillery shells in war, the structure of the tower remained whole, like a challenge to time itself. Haka Tulo. Once mistaken for secret nuclear bases because of their strange shape, these giant round buildings are actually unique earthen fortresses. Dating back to the 12th century, each enclosed building rises as high as 5 stories and served as a safe home for about 800 people. The walls, about 7 feet thick, were made from earth mixed with sticky rice and bamboo, hard like concrete, and the whole building had only one entrance, a heavy wooden gate covered with iron. This strong design helps the structure survive earthquakes up to magnitude 8 and stay about 9 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the outside air in summer. In complete contrast to the grey outer walls with no windows, the inside opens into a warm and lively world for the whole clan. The most special part is that all the rooms were designed almost the same, helping remove the gap between rich and poor and allowing everyone to live together in unity. Yungang Grottos. Once hidden deep inside the mountain, This place now reveals giant Buddha statues after the front rock wall slowly collapsed over time. Over about 60 years, tens of thousands of workers gave their strength to carve more than 51,000 statues into the mountain, turning the whole cliff into a huge Buddhist world. Even more striking, the 5 largest statues carry the faces of 5 emperors in a row, showing that royal power was once placed very close to the image of the Buddha. The statues also mix Chinese style with Greek, Indian, and Persian influence through high noses, deep eyes, and unusual clothing. When people step into the caves that still survive, they can see ceilings filled with carved patterns and bright red, blue, and gold colors that have remained for more than 1,500 years. That narrow and towering space forces every visitor to look upward, making them feel small before the majesty and power of the royal court. Terracotta Army. In 1974, while digging a well, local people accidentally awakened a silent army that had lain deep underground for more than 2,000 years to protect the Emperor of China in the next world. This army includes about 8,000 clay soldiers and war horses, and the most amazing part is that every face has its own unique look, with no two exactly the same. To create this grand wonder, about 700,000 people were forced to work, and many were buried alive to keep the tomb's secrets completely hidden. Sadly, the bright colors they once had disappeared only 15 seconds after touching the air, turning them all into grey figures that look like fossils from the past. Even so, the bronze swords they carried stayed amazingly sharp because of a protective layer that modern science only understood much later. This place is not only an ancient wonder, but also a haunting sign of the first emperor's fear of death and his dream of continuing to rule forever. Giant Wild Goose Pagoda. This tower was built by Xuanzang in 652 to store 657 scriptures he brought back after a journey of about 15,500 miles from India. To prevent fire, he chose to build it fully with earth and fired brick instead of using wood like other temples of that time. It later became the greatest translation center of the ancient world, where he and hundreds of scholars spent 19 years translating more than 1,300 scriptures. This structure, weighing about 4,400 tons, once sank and leaned badly because the ground below was weak, so it is often compared to the Leaning Tower of the East. After many restorations, the pagoda grew from 5 levels and about 177 feet tall to 7 levels and about 212 feet tall today. This monument stands as a great tribute to the extraordinary will of the man who brought knowledge back to his homeland. Mogo Caves. Hanging on the edge of the desert, this 1-mile cliff looks like a giant honeycomb hiding a bright universe of art. Starting in the 4th century, the hundreds of caves here were carved over more than 1,000 years. The moment you step through a simple wooden door, you enter the world's largest mural museum, with about 484,000 square feet of beautiful wall paintings. Then in 1900, people accidentally opened a tiny room of less than 32 square feet that had been sealed for about 900 years, and inside were about 50,000 manuscripts, Buddhist texts, and precious silk paintings. But this heritage is also very fragile, because human breath and moisture can damage the paintings, so when the level becomes too high, the cave doors close automatically to protect them. Big Bell Temple. This temple is famous for holding the giant Yongle bell, a great treasure cast in the early 15th century under the order of an emperor. The bell weighs about 51 tons, stands almost 23 feet tall, carries more than 230,000 Chinese characters, and was also part of the emperor's attempt to wash away his guilt. What is most amazing is that this huge mass of bronze has hung for more than 280 years on a wooden frame built without iron nails, and it still stands firm. Because of that, among all the bronze and iron bells from different times, this place feels like an ancient forest of sound. Diyuan, China. Diyuan feels like an invisible village beneath a flat and quiet surface where life does not rise into the sky but opens quietly inside the earth. Instead of building upward, people dug square pits about 20 to 23 feet deep and carved rooms into the four walls around a central courtyard. From a distance, the settlement is almost impossible to notice, with only trees above the ground and cooking smoke rising as if from nowhere. The solid loess earth around these homes gives them strong, natural insulation, keeping them cooler in hot weather and warmer in cold seasons. Even underground, they are protected by smart drainage design, and the buried structure also makes them more resistant to earthquakes than many surface buildings. These underground villages stand as a symbol of humility, where people chose to blend with nature instead of trying to conquer it. Tengzhong Volcanic Park. This place feels like a giant museum, with nearly 100 volcanoes standing close together. The deep crater bowls are now covered by thick, green forest full of life. Hidden under the rich soil, lava deep below still heats the underground water and creates boiling pools and springs. That rising heat is also why the whole area stays wrapped in soft mist through most of the year. To adapt, local people have wisely used very light volcanic stone to build houses and roads. Even with dangerous cracks across the land, this strange place was once a life-or-death stop on the ancient Southern Silk Road. The Stone Sea of Xingwen. Instead of water, this ocean is made of tens of thousands of sharp stone blocks that look like wild waves turned to rock. This is the only place in the world with a strange three-level structure, a stone sea on the surface, a giant sinkhole in the middle, and a vast cave world underground. The sinkhole here is more than 750 feet deep and nearly 2,150 feet across at its longest point, large enough to swallow several of the world's biggest stadiums. Deeper below is a network of more than 200 huge caves where darkness swallows every sound. In fact, this whole land is the fossil of coral reefs from 500 million years ago. This was also the last home of the Bow people, a mysterious warrior tribe that disappeared completely from history in the 16th century. The ancient city of Jiaohe. From a distance, Jiaohe looks like a giant earthen ship stranded in the valley and slowly melting under the sun. The city stands on an island about 1 mile long, more than 980 feet wide, and surrounded by steep cliffs rising more than 100 feet. Protected by 2 rivers and deep drops, it became the largest military fortress in the world without needing any city walls. Its most unusual feature is that ancient people did not build houses upward, but cut directly into the raised earth to create homes and roads. Yet this grand place stood in extreme heat, where the ground could reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit like a giant oven. Even in such a harsh land, more than 7,000 people once lived here before Mongol forces completely destroyed it in the 13th century. Temple of Heaven. This was the place where ancient emperors came to pray for good weather. So for a long time, it was seen as a holy gate between heaven and earth. Covering about 29 million square feet and holding more than 3,500 ancient cypress trees, it feels like a quiet green world cut off from the noise outside. At the center stands the main hall, about 125 feet tall, and inside are 28 large wooden columns that represent the sky, the seasons, and the months of the year. The most interesting part is the wall around the area, which can carry sound a long distance, so a person at one end can still hear a whisper from the other end. Many details here are also linked to the number 9, a number that stood for the emperor's highest power and lasting order. Each year, the emperor had to come here to fast and pray because a bad harvest could make people question the virtue and power of the Son of Heaven. Xiaojia Tiankeng. In sharp contrast to its name, which means small village, this is the deepest natural sinkhole on Earth, dropping more than 2,100 feet and large enough to swallow skyscrapers. This hourglass-shaped abyss was carved out by a violent underground river that hollowed the limestone for 128,000 years. Because of the strong difference in temperature, water vapor often gathers into clouds of mist hanging halfway inside the pit. At the bottom of this vast space, which is more than 4.2 billion cubic feet in volume, lies an ancient forest filled with unusual living things. To reach this hidden world, people had to cut 2,800 stone steps into the near vertical cliff. Its name came from an old settlement, once perched near the rim, a strangely peaceful name for such a giant monster of the earth. Emerald Lake, China. Instead of a freshwater lake hidden in deep forests, Emerald Lake is a surreal masterpiece molded from the intersection of human hands and desert geology. Formerly scars from an industrial salt mining area, it accumulated extremely high concentrations of potassium and lithium to create a green hue so brilliant it seems absurd. Reigning at an altitude of 10,328 feet, The thin air of the plateau allows light to penetrate powerfully, igniting watercolors like scattered pieces of broken jade. With extreme salinity making it impossible for any creature to survive, the lake's surface becomes a world of absolute silence, perfectly reflecting the solitude of the wilderness. Pure white salt paths running through the heart of the lake are actually sturdy, crystallized artificial dams, separating hundreds of small ponds like a jade mosaic carpet. Under the scorching sun, light refraction through the salt layers creates surreal mirages that make salt flowers at the bottom of the deep lake appear as if they are floating in mid-air. Mount Hua, China. Not for the faint of heart, Mount Hua stands like a giant granite axe blade splitting the sky, where courage is measured by every breath beside the abyss. Located at an altitude of 7,070 feet, this sacred mountain, representing the West, possesses 90-degree vertical cliffs flattened by intense geological faults from millions of years ago. On unbelievably narrow ledges, ancient temples from the Tang and Song dynasties still stand perched amidst the clouds, challenging all laws of physics. Travelers face extreme fear when moving on rock ledges only 1 foot wide, where the boundary between life and nothingness is just a handspan away. As sunset falls, the entire cliff reflects brilliant light, making the giant stone block look as if it were cast in solid gold, floating in a sea of white clouds. To touch this summit, you need 6 to 9 hours of arduous hiking to overcome exhaustion and find absolute peace in mid-air. Chaka Salt Lake, China. Completely obliterating the boundary between earth and heaven, this wonder is not a modern glass tower, but a giant salt basin located at an altitude of 10,036 feet. At an altitude of over 10,000 feet, extremely low air pressure keeps the water surface abnormally still, turning an area of 41 square miles into an absolute and pure reflective mirror. With a massive reserve of 496 million tons of salt, this white gold mine is sufficient to provide seasoning for billions of consumers for the next 75 years. In the heart of the lake appear magnificent sculptures carved from solid salt, impermanent architectural works that constantly melt and transform under the influence of rain and wind. When night falls, the lake surface turns into a grand lens reflecting the entire Milky Way, making you feel as if you are floating in the center of billions of stars surrounding you. However, this beauty carries high damage as the white salt reflects 90% of ultraviolet rays, causing tourists to suffer sunburn twice as fast as in normal environments. Crescent Moon, Spring, China. Challenging the harshest laws of the desert, Crescent Moon Spring embodies a razor-sharp jade stroke from the sky thrust straight into the hot sand for over 2,000 years. Its role was once a vital stop on the ancient Silk Road, providing precious water sources that helped travelers cross the boundary between life and death. This survival mystery lies in the surrounding dunes, towering 820 feet high, creating reverse updrafts that constantly blow sand to the hilltops to protect the 328-foot-long lake. Not originating from rainwater, the lake's lifeblood is nourished by an underground river flowing through pebble layers from snow mountains hundreds of miles away. Once on the brink of obliteration, when the water hit rock bottom at only 3 feet in the 1990s, this wonder resiliently revived to witness the sight of traffic jams caused by thousands of camels every day. Right beside the cold emerald water, the ancient pavilion complex stands firm against skin-tearing sandstorms thanks to mortise and tenon joinery using not a single iron nail. Great Wall of China. Like a giant stone dragon moving across the mountain peaks, this wall is the greatest defense system ever built and a strong symbol of human will. With a length of more than 13,000 miles, it could wrap around more than half of the Earth if it were stretched out flat. Over about 2,300 years of building, around 1 million people lost their lives, and many are believed to lie beneath the wall, which is why it is often called the longest graveyard in the world. What is amazing is that the wall has stayed standing for thousands of years because of a special mix made with sticky rice, and many people believe it is even stronger than modern concrete. However, about 30% of the wall has disappeared because of time and because local people once took its bricks to build houses. And, although it looks very grand, the truth is that you cannot see this wall from the moon with the naked eye, even though many people still believe that story. Tree of Earth, Tibet, China. Bearing a magnificent paradox where the barren desert plateau at an altitude of 14,764 feet rejects all seeds of life, Mother Earth uses her own erosion wounds to sculpt a giant tree of Earth. Instead of sprouting from seeds, this masterpiece has been torn apart for tens of thousands of years by the ruthless power of turbulent currents from melting ice and snow. The drainage network obeys a chilling fractal geometry ratio, carving roots 15 to 30 feet deep straight into the permafrost layer. Far beyond the design limits of any supercomputer, these blood-red tinged crevices were once told in ancient legends as the claw marks of a divine dragon or the blood of the creator. When winter's white snow fills the concave trenches, the tree transforms brilliantly into a pure white structure, glowing jaggedly against the pitch-black, desolate ground. Although creating greatness, the water current is a cold-blooded artist, constantly changing direction after every storm to tear away and ensure this masterpiece never repeats its old form. Chongqing Hongyadong. The whole complex rises about 250 feet high, with 11 levels of traditional stilt houses stacked in a wild way along the mountainside. This place was once a strategic military gate more than 2,300 years ago. It is a true symbol of 8-dimensional architecture, where you can feel completely confused when both the first floor and the 11th floor open onto busy roads full of traffic. Once you step inside, you will see an impressive artificial waterfall dropping about 40 feet down the cliff. If it feels dark and moody in the daytime with old wood, at night it transforms into a glowing spirit with the feeling of a fantasy future. The modern complex was rebuilt in 2005 with huge investment, turning old, worn stilt houses into a great cultural masterpiece. Wulong Karst. Famous as a giant museum of nature, this place overwhelms visitors with huge stone bridges and sinkholes as deep as 1,600 feet. The landscape is a striking contrast between grey cliffs rising hundreds of feet and a lush green forest resting at the bottom of the gorge. Hidden between the straight rock walls is an old wooden house that looks completely cut off from the outside world. In the past, local people had to risk their lives carving thousands of slippery stone steps to climb down. But today, you can reach the bottom much more easily by a giant glass elevator that drops hundreds of feet in just 1 minute. And if you want to test your courage, step onto the glass viewing platform, hanging nearly 1,000 feet above the bottom, for a truly shaking experience. Forbidden City. Beneath a sea of golden roofs and dark red walls, this palace was once the center of power, where 24 emperors ruled for more than 500 years. Covering about 8 million square feet, it is the largest ancient wooden palace complex on Earth that still remains well preserved. This huge place, with nearly 10,000 rooms, was completed in only 14 years through the labor of about 1 million workers. To stop assassins from hiding or digging underground, the main courtyards had no trees, and the floors were built with as many as 15 strong layers of brick. Right under your feet were special bricks that took almost 2 years to make and were so strong that they rang like metal when struck. True to the name Forbidden City, in the past, any common person who entered without permission could be sentenced to death at once. Qiantang River. Rising like a monster, this river carries the world's largest tidal bore, incarnating into a silver dragon, surging with destructive power from the deep sea to pounce on the mainland. This wrath is born from a topographical funnel, where a 62-mile-wide estuary is disastrously squeezed down to just 2 miles deep inland, amplifying its ruthless power. When millions of tons of water slam into the embankments, the massive reaction force hurls them into the sky, creating terrifying water bomb explosions up to 100 feet high. At the shoals, the ferocious current is torn in half and then slams into itself, forming a giant X shape that crushes everything caught in its epicenter. To protect their lives, the ancients used iron tenons to piece together massive stone blocks into a grand seawall system, considered as solid as the ancient Great Wall. Today, modern barriers must absolutely not be built flat, but must have a jagged or stepped shape to tear apart the water mass, because a vertical levee would be smashed to pieces instantly. Longmen Grottos. Stretching for more than half a mile across a steep rock wall, this carved site looks like a giant honeycomb, hiding great treasures of art. It was carved over 493 years, creating 110,000 Buddha statues and a priceless ancient stone library. The most striking figure is a giant statue about 56 feet tall, linked to Empress Wu Zetian, standing among countless tiny carvings only about 1 inch wide. Because the rock is so strong, these carvings have proudly faced rain and wind for more than 1,500 years. Even though many stone figures lost their heads to theft, those scars of history only make this heritage feel even stronger and more moving. When night falls, lights shine into the caves and turn the whole cliff into a sparkling galaxy reflected on the river. Tiantan Buddha. Rising high among the clouds on a mountain peak, the Buddha appears like a spiritual lighthouse guarding peace across the surrounding seas of Hong Kong. Set about 1,582 feet above sea level, it often appears to float in the sky when heavy mist hides the base below. To reach it, visitors must climb 268 steep steps, a short ascent that still feels like a path leading away from the ordinary world. The statue was assembled from 202 separate bronze sections, with an outer shell about 0.4 inches thick and an internal steel frame strong enough to resist severe coastal storms. Around the main figure stand 6 smaller bronze statues, offering flowers and incense, making the entire setting feel like an eternal act of devotion preserved on the mountain. It feels not only like a monumental sculpture, but like a symbol of peace, where architecture, faith, cloud, and wind become one unforgettable image. Fenghuang Ancient Town feels like a living ink painting, where old stilt houses have reflected in the Tuo River for centuries. Backed by mountains and wrapped around flowing water, the town follows a natural balance that makes the whole setting feel sheltered and graceful. Its most distinctive sight is the wooden stilt houses of the Miao and Tujia people, standing above the river as if suspended between the shore and memory. The clear water mirrors grey roofs, dark wood, and red lanterns, making the beauty of the town seem doubled in a quiet sheet of glass. By day, people cross the river on stepping stones, and by night thousands of lanterns light up the streets and turn the town from calm and shadowy into something glowing and dreamlike. That blend of water, mountains, old houses, and slow life is what makes this more than a historic town, but a living museum over 1,300 years old, beautiful in a way that feels both poetic and melancholic. Dazu rock carvings. The Dazu rock carvings rise across sandstone cliffs like a giant epic, preserving the masterful sculpting skill of ancient people. From the 9th to the 13th century, tens of thousands of statues and reliefs were carved into the rock, turning this place into one of the greatest religious sculpture treasures in the East. What makes it especially rare is that Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism appear together in harmony, creating a spiritual landscape of unusual depth and variety. Unlike many cave sites that focus only on gods, this one also shows farming, parenting, drinking, and moral lessons from daily life, giving the stone a deeply human voice. Its most famous image is a reclining Buddha, about 102 feet long, carved only from the head to the knees, so the rest seems to disappear into the cliff and feel endless. In the narrow and quiet valleys, with thousands of carved faces surrounding you, the whole site feels not just like an old monument, but like an ancient world, silently looking back at people today. Bezeklik Thousand Buddha Caves. Clinging to red cliffs that look like burning coal, these 77 caves are a wonder hanging above the desert. For more than 1,500 years, this place was a major Buddhist center on the Silk Road, so it still holds many valuable wall paintings in situ. What makes it special is that these paintings show a meeting of Indian, Persian, and Chinese artistic styles. Right below those hot and dry cliffs lies a green valley, making the whole cave site feel as if it stands between life and death. Even though it is no longer complete, the place still makes people feel as if they are stepping into a giant storehouse of memories left from the Silk Road. Summer Palace. Once completely burned down in war, this palace garden rose proudly again and became one of the most luxurious summer retreats of the royal family. About 75% of the area is lake water dug by hand, while the earth taken out was piled into a hill about 197 feet high beside it. Along the lakeside runs a covered walkway, about 2,389 feet long, holding more than 14,000 unique hand-painted pictures, which helped it earn the Guinness record as the longest walkway of its kind in the world. The garden's luxury is also tied to the fact that Empress Dowager Cixi used the full military budget just to restore the golden-roofed palaces. Its strangest feature is a marble boat that stands forever still on the lake, a symbol of a dynasty's power that could never be overturned. With buildings designed to copy famous views from many regions, this place allowed the emperor to travel across the whole country without ever leaving the palace. Quandixia Village. Clinging to the mountainside like a fortress, this village still keeps the old look it had hundreds of years ago. Instead of standing on flat ground, hundreds of houses are stacked like steps along the steep slope. The whole place is covered in the grey of stone walls, black roof tiles, and dark old wooden gates. The houses are connected by narrow, rough stone. Each house is protected by solid stone walls, more than 2 feet thick, with small high windows once used to shoot arrows at bandits. In fact, this place was not first built for farming, but as a military post guarding a strategic mountain pass from attacks by nomadic tribes. Shiziguan Floating Bridge. Suspended between deep canyon walls, the Shiziguan Floating Bridge feels like a real dream, where people can glide directly across emerald green water. At about 1,640 feet long and 15 feet wide, it allows only a single lane of traffic, so every crossing feels like driving directly over the river itself. The whole structure is supported by thousands of floating HDPE units that can carry heavy loads, resist corrosion, and adjust to changing water levels and natural currents. When cars move across at less than about 12 miles per hour, small waves spread outward on both sides and give drivers the strange feeling of gliding on real water. In the early morning, rising mist wraps around the bridge and the green cliffs, making the whole place feel less like a road and more like a suspended dream inside nature. Dujiangyan Irrigation System. Instead of using concrete walls, Dujiangyan is the only wonder that controls the power of nature with human wisdom from more than 2,000 years ago. Built in about 256 BC, this system still works perfectly today and supports more than 50 million people without a single dam blocking the river. To cut through the mountain and make water channels before explosives existed, ancient workers spent about 8 years heating the rock with fire and then pouring cold water on it until it cracked. Its core is a giant fish-mouth-shaped island that automatically splits the river and throws out about 80% of the sand and stones so the channel does not fill up. Instead of cement, woven bamboo baskets filled with river stones were used to weaken the force of the water and help the structure survive earthquakes. By following nature instead of fighting it, this place turned a flood-prone land into a rich and fertile world where people and the river live in perfect balance. Furong Town. Known as the town hanging above a waterfall, this place has a huge flow of water about 200 feet high, falling straight from the center of the settlement into the deep space below. With a history of more than 2,000 years, it is an ancient place where wooden stilt houses cling tightly to the cliff on slender, supporting posts. The waterfall, more than 130 feet wide, roars day and night and leaves green moss across the wet stone paths. Its grandeur also lives in the 1,000-year-old bronze pillars and the mysterious path that runs behind the curtain of white water. When night falls, thousands of glowing lanterns make the whole town seem to float inside a soft cloud of drifting spray. The place was originally called Wang Kun, but after the success of the film Hibiscus Town in 1986, the film's name was officially given to the town. Wangji Bridge. Built in 1171, this bridge was special because its middle section could be opened to let large boats pass through. At 1,700 feet long, it was a strange mix of a solid stone bridge and a floating section made from 18 wooden boats. From far away, the whole bridge looked like a row of palaces on the water, with 24 pavilions resting on sharp stone piers that helped cut through the strong current. Every afternoon, when the 18 boats in the middle were taken apart, the bridge looked almost like a living body, opening itself in two above the river. At both ends, once stood two old iron oxen guarding the bridge, but one was swept away by floodwater and disappeared into the riverbed about 3 centuries ago. Once a busy market on the river, this bridge shows that people long ago knew how to live with nature instead of trying to fight it. Lijiang Old Town feels like an ancient water maze in the highlands of Yunnan, where dark tiled roofs, red lanterns, and clear canals blend into a scene that is both gentle and dreamlike. Unlike many old Chinese towns, it has no city wall because people once believed that enclosing it would turn the ruling family's name into a sign of entrapment. Fed by snowmelt from the high mountains, water runs through narrow canals beside wooden houses and beneath hundreds of bridges, creating a constant sound like the pulse of the town itself. Its streets are paved with local red multicolored stone that becomes smoother with use, while the houses combine Han, Tibetan, and Bai influences into the distinct Naxi style. At about 7,874 feet above sea level, the air is thin and clear, and the white mountain peak often appears at the end of old lanes in dramatic contrast with the dark roofs below. It feels not only like the Venice of the East, but also like a living museum, where water, stone, pictographic writing, and more than 800 years of memory still breathe together. Mogao Caves, China. Buried in the barren desert, the Mogao Caves are a brilliant artistic universe and humanity's greatest visual encyclopedia, painted continuously for 1,000 years. Viewed from the outside, the cliff face, nearly 1 mile long, is crisscrossed with hundreds of dark holes stacked together exactly like a giant honeycomb rooted in the sea of sand. Hidden deep inside are over 484,376 square feet of murals and 2,000 clay statues, enough to form a gallery stretching nearly 30 miles. Due to the crumbly gravel walls, the ancients had to drive wooden stakes and wrap straw as skeletal frames before applying clay to shape the lifelike statues defying time. This magnificent beauty is adorned with expensive, crushed mineral powders like cinnabar red or lapis lazuli blue, whose value far exceeded solid gold. Stepping into the narrow space engulfed in strict darkness to look up at the 114-foot Buddha statue, travelers will be completely subdued by a deeply reverent visual pressure. Fanjingshan, China. Splitting the rolling sea of clouds at 8,438 feet, this mountain stands like Earth's finger pointing directly at the galaxy, over 1,400,000,000 years old. Recognized by UNESCO as the most isolated metamorphic island on the planet, this wonder carries fossils older than even the majestic Himalayas. Upon two vertical stone peaks, split by a deep abyss, sit two ancient temples from the Ming dynasty, challenging all laws of physics for 5 centuries. To connect these two spiritual worlds, a narrow stone bridge is perched across the chasm at over 8,200 feet, creating an overwhelming sight of suspension. The journey to reach the Bodhi Manda of Maitreya Buddha forces travelers to overcome 8,888 steep stone steps, an ascetic challenge to cleanse the soul. At the holiest peak among China's 5 Buddhist sacred sites, the boundary between reality and the Pure Land seems to vanish completely amidst the white clouds. Ming tombs. Backed by high mountains and facing a wide valley, this is the eternal resting place of 13 emperors, arranged in what was seen as a perfect, sacred landscape. Built over 230 years, this vast burial complex is a powerful meeting of human work and the grand beauty of nature. The most astonishing part is the underground palace, lying 89 feet below the earth, built fully from huge stone blocks without any supporting columns. The way into the tomb area is guarded by a long line of giant stone statues standing for the highest power of emperors across many centuries. Bright yellow roofs and dark red walls appear between deep green trees, creating a view that feels both majestic and hauntingly quiet. This place is not only a burial ground, but also a sign of the lasting dream of one of the most glorious dynasties in history. Mati Temple Grottos, China. Breaking all norms of a sturdy constructed building, this spiritual complex is a massive system hollowed out directly into a vertical red sandstone cliff. Perched at an altitude of 8,200 to 9,186 feet, this precarious wonder leans right against the edge of eternal snow and ice peaks. Diligently created by dozens of generations of stonemasons 1,600 years ago, this magnificent horsehoof name originates from the legend of a heavenly horse descending to leave a permanent hoofprint on the cliff. Crossing all boundaries, this place became a rare sanctuary in the world, featuring a brilliant blend of Tibetan Buddhism and Han Buddhism within the same cave system. To reach the highest pagoda levels hidden inside the mountain core, travelers cannot walk upright but must crawl close to the ground, clinging with all four limbs to sweat-soaked, near-vertical stone steps. Despite its magnificent beauty, the soft sandstone material that made carving easy turns this suspended wonder into a conservation nightmare against the terrifying weathering speed of the mountain winds. Collagen grassland, China. Completely erasing the definition of flatness, this wonder is a three-dimensional grassland suspended on the Tian Shan Mountains at an altitude of 6,500 to 11,800 feet. Spreading over 1,100 square miles, the prairie surface rolls with continuous undulating geological folds from fierce, ancient tectonic faults. The endless green carpet is suddenly torn by canyons thousands of feet deep, perfectly displaying four spectacular ecological layers from snow peaks to jade rivers. Under the slanting sunlight, the hills cast shadows that create smooth, graceful curves exactly like a masterpiece sculpture of the human body by nature. In early summer, the grass bursts brilliantly with over 100 wildflower species blooming into 5 successive waves of color, reaching out to the horizon. This place was also the source of the blood-sweating, heavenly horses, a treasure that ancient emperors defied all bloody wars to possess. Irgun Wetland. In the middle of the dry grassland, this wetland appears like a vast and untouched green sea. Spreading across more than 4,800 square miles, it once helped feed the powerful war horses of the Mongol Empire. From above, the winding rivers shine under the sun like countless silver ribbons woven across the land. Scattered across the still water are tens of thousands of shrub clusters that look like small islands floating in the air. Autumn here is breathtaking, but very short. In less than 3 weeks, the whole land bursts into bright gold and deep red. But soon after that, this feast of color is quickly buried under white snowstorms. Longji rice terraces. The winding terraces look like the giant scales of a dragon wrapped around the mountain, creating a view that feels both grand and delicate. This beauty did not appear by nature alone, but was built with patience by local people from the 13th century. To create this masterpiece of more than 25 square miles, they kept cutting into the mountains with simple tools for 700 long years. In summer, the whole landscape shines with fresh green waves of young rice stretching far toward the horizon. When autumn comes, the colors change again, turning the mountain into a bright golden carpet under the sun. Moving quietly through that scene are women with record-long hair carrying a unique culture closely tied to every grain of rice. Mount Kailash, Tibet, China. More than just a simple stone peak, Mount Kailash is the untouchable axis of the universe at an altitude of 21,778 feet, where no human footprint has ever reached the sacred summit. This convergence point of four major religions bears chilling coordinates, being exactly 4,142 miles away from both Stonehenge and the North Pole, creating a mysterious mathematical coincidence. Upon the dark grey cliffs, nature has skillfully carved a massive staircase leading to heaven, alongside an eternal swastika symbol appearing clearly under the sunset. At the foot of the mountain, the balance of the universe is revealed through two lakes sitting side by side, where one remains sweet and still, while the other rages with salty waves. Transcending all physical limits, completing 108 pilgrimage circuits around the sacred mountain is believed to be the only key to helping humans reach the realm of ultimate enlightenment. Qiandao Lake, China. Far from a typical lake, this man-made wonder is a giant green labyrinth where over 1,000 islands bob like scattered jade pieces in a freshwater ocean. With 1,078 islands across 221 square miles, it has the world's densest island concentration with a forest cover ratio of over 90%. The water here is so pure, it meets direct drinking standards on the spot, serving as a precious supply for the nation's leading bottled water brand. However, the most striking secret lies at a depth of 131 feet, where two 1,800-year-old ancient cities still sleep intact like an eastern Atlantis. To create this magnificent beauty, more than 290,000 people had to abandon their homeland, leaving all memories and houses beneath the cold deep. Qiandao Lake is a testament to the trade-off between industrial progress and historical preservation, where a brilliant present reigns directly upon the foundation of the past. Bayan Bulak grassland. Hidden among snowy mountain ranges, this grassland stands at 8,200 feet and spreads like a giant green velvet carpet across more than 8,880 square miles. It is known as the second largest grassland in China, and its most striking feature is a river that twists across the plain for tens of miles. The view becomes most magical at sunset, when the water reflects the light and creates the illusion of 9 suns lined up one after another. Even more frightening, winter temperatures here can fall to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. In spite of that harsh world, ancient nomadic tribes still risked everything to enter this basin and live in deep isolation. When you stand here, the contrast between green grass, white snow, and a clear blue sky feels almost unreal. The mushroom villages of Honghe. Halfway up the mountain, these houses look like giant mushrooms floating in a sea of mist. They stand between old forest and a vast system of rice terraces that runs all the way down to the bottom of the valley. To fight the cold, people build earthen walls 2 feet thick and cover the homes with large straw roofs, helping them blend fully into nature. Each house usually has 3 levels, and the ground floor is used for animals, so their body heat can rise and warm the people living above. Inside, a fire is kept burning all year to provide warmth, and the smoke also protects the straw roof from rotting. Every 10 years, the villagers work together to replace tens of thousands of pounds of fresh straw, determined to preserve this great survival design that has lasted for more than 13 centuries.